What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, I'm going to talk about the best forwards you can pick for your Game Week 1 squad. Basically, I'm going to give an overview of the best options at each price point, depending on how much you have to spend. So hopefully you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So let's start with the most expensive forwards, Haaland, Isak and Watkins. It's worth saying at the time of recording that Gyökeres for Arsenal has officially signed, but he hasn't been given a price in FPL. So I'm going to talk about him alongside Ekitike in a minute, but there's every chance he's the same price as Watkins, if not slightly more expensive. So if you're just wondering why he's not on this list, with Erling Haaland, I don't think there's really too much to say. We know he's going to score plenty of goals this season. Even last year, in a bad season for him, he still scored 22. Let's not forget what he did in the first two seasons. There's every chance he does extremely well for 14 million. At this point in time, I'm struggling to see a good draft with Haaland and Salah. I think it's viable enough, but I do think in other areas of the squad you lose out too much. It's probably not something I will do. So really it's Haaland versus Salah. But individually for 14 million, I think Haaland is a decent pick. If you want to go for Salah instead, absolutely fine. One thing to say on Haaland, he is less popular. Like Salah's over 50% owned, Haaland's less than 20. So if you want to go slightly differential, I don't see an issue going Haaland. I think him versus Salah, if you're only having one, is much closer than people will give it credit for. And ultimately, City have got a good opening set of fixtures. Wolves away game week 1, followed by Spurs at home, Man United away. Brighton away, then Man United at home. Then Arsenal away in 5, and then Burnley at home in 6. Game week 6, definitely going to be the best captain, I would say. Other weeks, maybe not, like first game week, obviously Salah, but then Salah runs into Newcastle away and Arsenal in game week 3 anyway. So if you want to take Salah on for a few weeks, I do not mind Haaland. Good pick, definitely not essential. With Isak, for me right now, while I'm recording this, he has to be ignored. He's 36.1% ownership. We don't know if he's going to sign a new contract with Newcastle. If not, is this transfer saga with him wanting to leave going to drag on? The Premier League season's only a couple of weeks away from starting. There's a chance, you'd assume a big transfer like this would happen sooner rather than later. Because Liverpool want to get it done before game week 1. Newcastle need to spend the money, but it might not. And I just think unless you know for certain he's going to be a Newcastle player next year, you can't buy him. And I don't think you want to put him on your squad on the off chance he moves to Liverpool. And also, I think if he does move to Liverpool, he becomes a slightly worse FPL option because he'll probably lose a few minutes, more so than if he was at Newcastle, and he won't have penalties either. It's not to say that for 10.5 million he won't do well, but I don't see me starting with Isak if he goes to Liverpool. I just can't start with him at Newcastle either. If he signs a new contract and we know he's going to be a Newcastle player, and that's a definite, then he's not a bad option to start with. Villa away is okay game week 1. Liverpool at home would then be big in game week 2, but it's a difficult fixture. But then you've got Leeds away game week 3. He's one of the better captains. Then Wolves at home, Bournemouth away is fine. So if he's at Newcastle for certain, good option to start with at 10.5 if you've got the money. Otherwise, I'd be a little bit unsure. You can always come back to him later on. And then Watkins is probably a bit underrated at the moment. 9 million is not cheap, and I wouldn't say it's value necessarily, but it's a good price. He probably won't have penalties, although that's up in the air for Villa at the moment. But for 9 million, you've got a really good opening set of fixtures. And look, he's someone that there's lots of speculation about might leave. But as it stands, he's a Villa player. Newcastle at home, Brentford away, Palace at home, Everton away, Sunderland away, Fulham at home. It's a really good opening set of 6 fixtures. And if he's at Villa, you know he's going to play every game. There's no John Duran to take minutes off him now. There's no Rashford there either. He's going to play close to 90 in each of those games. So I really like Watkins. I think out of these 3 players right now, he's probably the most likely to make my squad. So let's talk about Gyökeres, Ekitike and Bowen next. I've included Gyökeres here because I assumed he won't be less than 8.5 million. I think that's an absolute guarantee, but I do think he could be 9 or 9.5. Here's one interesting thing about him. He's got a really good penalty record and he's taken a lot more than Saka. And specifically in a press conference recently, Arteta was asked, will Gyökeres be on penalties? He said, I'm sure that he will step in if they allow him to do so, because as you say, he's been very consistent and he scored many goals, but we have some other penalty takers, really good ones as well. So they will resolve it themselves, and if not, I will intervene in the right moment. Now, Arteta was never going to come out and say, yes, he's our penalty taker, Saka, you're off them. And this is not a guarantee, but when I read this, I think this said to me it's more likely Gyökeres will be on them than not. So I think he's going to come in and become first choice penalty taker for Arsenal, which is obviously a big benefit. It's not a guarantee, but I think it will happen. The one question mark I have is what his minutes will be like. And I would say that if you've not watched my videos before, I'm quite cautious when it comes to minutes. And on one hand, I look at it and say, surely Arsenal have been screaming for a number 9 like this for so long. He just comes in and plays every single game. But I think Havertz is slightly underrated by people. And I think Arteta likes him more than people realise. And I don't think it's impossible that Havertz starts the old game as number 9. Potentially. Especially early on in the season. We're just over 2 weeks until game week 1. And Gyökeres hasn't played any part of pre-season for Arsenal yet. And hasn't played any football since Sporting won the league. So, game week 1 against Man United away, is it impossible for Havertz to start? I don't think it is. And I think that's an issue. Like, if he doesn't start game week 1, you're going to suddenly panic. You'll have to keep him for Leeds at home. What if he doesn't start that game as well? Like I said, I think it is more likely that he does start and that he's on penalties, but neither of those things are guaranteed. And if he's going to come in at 9 or 9.5 million, I don't know whether I'd want to start the season with him. Because if he misses one of those first 2 games, and then Liverpool away in game week 3, it's not a great start. Like I said, you can always come back to him later. So on the one hand, I really feel like we've got these exciting signings this year for FPL, and he could be amazing. But there's also this cautious side of me that says, not guaranteed penalties, but I think he'll get them. Not guaranteed to start in game week 1. But let's see what Arteta says over the next couple of weeks. Ekitike, I like. I think 8.5 million is a good price. He's definitely not going to have penalties. Fixtures for Liverpool are pretty good. There's always this worry from people about players new to the league and they will struggle. I'm telling you now, I tweeted about this the other day, there's lots of players that do well in their first season in the Premier League. Morgan Rogers' first proper season last year did really well. Nicholas Jackson, I think, got 14 goals. Evanilson came in last year, 10 goals, 5 assists. Yes, you can name a lot of players that have come to the league and struggled, but that's always what people remember. There's lots of players that have done well. I would not be surprised if he hits the ground running, but with all this stuff going on with Isak, Ekitike's minutes are then a problem. So I don't know right now if I would go for him. Again, he'd probably be a wait and see, but I would not begrudge anyone going for either of these 2 players because I think from an FPL point of view, it's quite exciting. Jared Bowen, there's going to be this mindset shift that's going to be difficult for people now he's listed as a forward. By the way, I have been asked why he's now listed as a forward. Last year, basically, he played 15 times the centre forward for West Ham, and a lot of those games were in the second half of the season. So that's why they've put him as a forward. I think it's incorrect because I think it's very likely he plays right wing this year, but that's why they've done it. For what it's worth, he wouldn't have lost many points if he was a forward last year because obviously you lose points for a clean sheet and a goal, but you gain points in the bonus system. So he would have done pretty similarly. I like him at 8 million. Doesn't necessarily have penalties, but he's absolutely guaranteed to play 90 minutes pretty much every week. He's been super consistent in terms of the goals he's scored over the last few seasons, and the fixtures to open up are pretty good. Sunderland away game week 1. Chelsea at home's not great in 2, but it's okay. Then you got Forest away, Spurs at home, Palace at home, Everton away. I think he's a really good option to start with. On penalties for West Ham, Paquetá was their first choice taker. There's rumours that he might leave. I just wonder whether Fulkrug might take them if he can get fit and stay in that team, because he's got a pretty good record and Jared Bowen's not the best at penalties, but there is a chance he gets them. If he doesn't, he's still going to play pretty much every minute of every West Ham game that he's fit for. And honestly, right now, of these 3 players, he's arguably the best option to start with, which I know sounds crazy, and he's a little bit cheaper than Ekitike, and presumably he's going to be cheaper than Gyökeres as well. So typically, as I was editing this video, FPL released the price of Gyökeres, and he's coming at 9 million, so 0.5 million more than Ekitike, and I think it was to be expected that he probably would cost more. Initial reaction is, 2 weeks out from the Game Week 1 deadline, for 9 million Game Week 1 squad, I think I'd just about prefer Watkins. Unless we get closer to the deadline and there's loads of speculation that Watkins is going to leave, I think you know he's going to start. His minutes are great. And actually, Aston Villa's fixtures are probably better than Arsenal's anyway. First 6 look pretty good. So I think I prefer Watkins. But 9 million is a really enticing price. And it's a player that could be underpriced. If he gets the minutes at Arsenal and is playing 80 to 90 every single week as that number 9, and he gets penalties, 9 million is probably going to be too cheap. Maybe he should have come in at 9.5 or 10. So I don't think he's essential. even though I've seen some people talk already like he is. But I think it is an enticing price, and if you want to start with him, you absolutely should. But right now, I still just prefer Watkins, but there's plenty of time to change my mind on that. So because Gyökeres is such an exciting pick and everyone's talking about him at the moment, I thought I would put him into an FPL draft just to see what it would look like in the My Team Tour and Fantasy Football Hub. And this draft with him in it comes out at 90%, so pretty decent. Sanchez in goal, back three, Van Dijk, Rodon, and Murillo. The midfield five, Rodgers, Palmer, Tielemans, Semenyo, and Salah. Tielemans, by the way, should be nailed on, might be on penalties and good for defensive contributions. Then Solanke and Gyökeres up front. That looks pretty strong to me. If you want to get your team rated for free, whether it's got Gyökeres or not, link in the description below or scan that QR code on screen. And then we've got the 7.5 million options. So Havertz, Visser, João Pedro, Mateta, Chris Wood, and Solanke. I think with Havertz, you can just write him off as an option straight away. Yes, I think there's a small chance he plays number 9 in the first couple of game weeks. If not, he could play number 8, number 10, but none of it is guaranteed. So I just wouldn't go for him. With Visser, at the moment, we're unsure where he's going to end up by the end of the transfer window. Could it be at Newcastle? Will he stay at Brentford? Will it be somewhere else? It's hard to know. If before the game week 1 deadline, he signs a new contract with Brentford or they come out and say he's definitely staying, then I really like him as an option. His output last year was incredible, and I don't think it was a fluke. He put up 0.57 expected goals per 90, which is really good. And the fixtures are decent as well. Forest away, Villa at home, Sunderland away, opening 3. Then it's Chelsea at home, Fulham away, Man United at home. With no Mbeumo, he'd also get penalties, almost certainly. And if he does stay at Brentford, he's playing 90 pretty much every game. I know people are concerned about Brentford. They've lost Mbeumo, Norgard, etc. But it's just a well-run club. I think they'll be okay. Can't guarantee it, but that's my gut instinct. So if he's definitely staying at Brentford, good option. If there's any doubts around his future by the time we get to that deadline, you've just got to ignore him. And if he goes somewhere like Newcastle, potentially becomes an amazing option, but not if they sign another forward like Šeško or someone like that, because then there's doubts around his minutes. So a lot of it is up in the air with Visser. João Pedro is currently, at the time of recording, the most owned player in FPL. I find that not surprising, but I don't think he's that good of a pick that his ownership should be that high. I think what happened in the Club World Cup is on people's minds. They're looking at it saying 3 goals, 2 games, 7.5 million, number 9 for Chelsea. Such an easy pick. And I do get it, and I think he will start game week 1. And I do like Chelsea's opening 6 game weeks. But the idea that he's nailed as their number 9, I'm just not sure is going to stand up in the next few weeks. They've got the lap there. Jackson when he's back from back from suspension, if he doesn't get sold. So they've got options in that number 9. They're all different profiles as well. And Maresca, we've seen, is tactically flexible. And if he doesn't play number 9, he could play somewhere else. But that's not guaranteed. And he's not on penalties either. So I look at João a little bit like Gyökeres, right? I'm open to the fact I could easily be wrong. I look at it, and in one world, João Pedro is an amazing pick, and I'm going to really struggle in a few weeks' time to, how I didn't pick him. But I also don't think it's a guarantee. I think it's far from a guarantee. And at 7.5, you can get a nailed-on penalty taker. Is João Pedro that good that you've got to go for him? Last year, his goal threat was 0.28 expected goals per 90, the lowest on this list. I don't know if he's as good a pick as his ownership suggests. He's fine, but he's certainly far from essential. Mateta, 6.4% owned, really good option. If Eze goes to Arsenal, obviously they then would have lost Elise, not this summer, but, previous summer, and Eze as well. It's not great for them, but I don't think it makes Mateta a much worse option. I think for FPL it makes him better because he'll be on penalties. And the opening fixtures, I think, are better than people are giving them credit for. It's not great having Chelsea away game week 1, but then Forest away, Villa at home, Forest at home, Villa away, Sunderland at home, West Ham away. It's pretty good. And if Eze does stay, okay, Mateta doesn't have penalties, but his goal threat is decent, and he's going to play every game. More so than you do with João Pedro. So I really like Mateta. He's probably my favourite out of the 4 we've spoken about, but Chris Wood and Solanke are definitely good options as well. Chris Wood last year absolutely killed me. I only owned him for 1 week and he blanked. He did really well. He is going to come down in terms of goals this year. I almost guarantee that. But I love Forest's opening fixtures. Apart from Arsenal away in game week 4, you got Brentford at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, first 3. And then game weeks 5 and 6 are Burnley away and Sunderland at home. The only question mark I have is, will his minutes come down now they're in Europe? Is he really going to start every single game, Premier League and Europe? It seems unlikely. They've still got Awani on the books. I think he's a good player. He could take some minutes from Chris Wood, even if that's off the bench. They've also signed Igor Jesus as well, another forward they could play from Botafogo. So on paper, Chris Wood is amazing. Nailed penalties, really good fixtures. Maybe there's more question marks about his minutes this year than there was last year. So I don't mind starting with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if after a while he's one that probably will need to go. And then Solanke, if he's fit and available, I really like Spurs opening fixtures. He's going to be their main number 9. Let's see what happens with Son. There's rumours that he might leave. I don't know if I see that, by the way. I think Son will be at Spurs next season. But it's not a guarantee. And if he goes, Solanke will take penalties. I'm almost certain of that. So he's a really good option. I would say out the 7.5s, Visser, if he stays at Brentford, is amazing, but there's too much uncertainty. So just because of the fixtures, probably Chris Wood. But I really like Solanke. I think Spurs will just score more goals. Nottingham Forest overperformed really heavily in terms of goals last year. And if that comes down, Chris Wood's not going to be valued at 7.5. That's the concerns I have, plus the minutes. So I'm going to say Solanke, then Chris Wood, then Mateta. But I could come around to going for the Forest guy. And then we've got Evanilson plus the 6.5 million options. Evanilson, I think, is a really solid pick to start the season with. His goal threat is decent. Bournemouth are just a good attacking team overall. And after Liverpool away, the fixture run is pretty good. Wolves at home, Spurs away, Brighton at home, Newcastle at home, Leeds away. And he's pretty much guaranteed to start at the moment. They have signed this new guy, Krupi Jr., who might come in and take some minutes. But I don't see him starting anytime soon. So Evanilson, no penalties, but decent goal threat, good fixtures, and 7 million is a good price. With the 6.5s, Danny Welbeck, I think, is a pretty good option. Should be now to start for Brighton. The one concern I have with him is Hertzler. He's not always open in press conferences, not to the point that he will necessarily lie, but he'll just leave information out. So he just won't mention a player like Welbeck, and then all of a sudden you get to the weekend and he's not in the squad because he's picked up an injury. And he can be injury prone at times. So that's what worries me. But when he's fit, he'll start. His minutes should be pretty good. And I think he will take penalties as well. I know De Kuyper in defence has got a good penalty record, but I don't see him taking them instead of Welbeck. Welbeck took some in pre-season last year when João Pedro wasn't on the pitch. And obviously João Pedro is not a Brighton player anymore. And the opening fixtures are pretty good. Fulham at home, Everton away, City at home, Bournemouth away, Spurs at home. They're not perfect fixtures, by the way, but I think you can say that about so many of the players we're looking at. Like, all the players on this list don't have perfect fixture runs. There's nothing to really separate them from that point of view. But Welbeck's a solid enough pick. I think with Raul Jimenez at Fulham, let's see if Muniz is still there after the transfer window. Raul Jimenez is first choice, and he's first choice penalty taker, but his minutes are not always guaranteed. Also with Fulham, I think the fixtures are overall okay, but the fact they've got Brighton and Chelsea away from home first 3 is not great. I mean, once you're past Brighton, then you can frame it as, well, it's Man United at home and Leeds at home in 2 of the next 3. But I just think he's someone I'd probably come back to later. I think I'd rather start with Welbeck or Strand Larsen. Just to mention Strand Larsen quickly, City at home game week 1, Newcastle away game week 4. So again, not perfect fixtures, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be nailed on as the number 9 for Wolves. Scored 14 goals in 30 starts last year. Somebody needs to take penalties in that team as well, if Wolves get any penalties. I think it'll be Strand Larsen. It's worth saying, at senior level, I don't think he's taken a penalty yet. And John Arias, who's come in, has. So he might take penalties. It's not a guarantee that Strand Larsen gets them, but I think he will. And I quite like the fixtures outside of the City at home, Newcastle away. But for 6.5 million, part of the reason you're going for him is to spend your money in defence or midfield. I think if you had to play him against City at home or Newcastle away, it's really not a problem. So my favourite option out of the 6.5s is between Welbeck and Strand Larsen. I'd probably go Strand Larsen just because of the injury thing with Welbeck, but it's close between the two. Evanilson, if you can stretch to 7, is really good as well. And I've put Højlund on this list. I would just ignore him. I've already seen some Man United fans saying that he's looked better against West Ham in the pre-season game. Honestly, the bar is so low for Højlund to look better. I wouldn't put too much behind that. And also, even if he does have this amazing season, which he probably won't, it's Arsenal at home game week 1, City away game week 4, Chelsea at home game week 5. I know I've just said that no one's got a perfect fixture run, but that is the worst fixture run on this list. Xerxes can play number 9. Man United are surely going to go and buy another number 9, you'd hope, as a Man United fan. Højlund's just not an option. So I think the £6 million forwards have potential to be better value than some of those 6.5s or even Evanilson. I'm just not sure that value is going to be seen right at the start of the season. So let me explain why. So Thiago at Brentford, a lot of that is going to depend on what happens with Visser. If Visser leaves, then presumably Thiago is going to be first choice number 9 and probably take penalties as well. And I've already said that I quite like Brentford's fixtures. So if Visser goes, Thiago is great. If Visser stays, probably less so. They could play together, but his minutes wouldn't be as guaranteed and he probably wouldn't have penalties either. Again, talking about Brentford and how negative everyone is around them, they are a team a bit like Brighton that I just trust to get it right with transfers. They're not going to nail every single transfer, but often a player comes in, you don't necessarily see them straight away, and the next season they do really well. Thiago was signed to be the Tony replacement. He just picked up an injury. So he is capable of doing really well. And I think if Visser leaves, 6 million nailed on probably player with penalties, I really like him, but we need to see what happens with Visser first. Barry at Everton, I also think there's reason to be excited about him. I just don't know if we're going to be able to guarantee starts from him straight away. He put up last season 0.45 expected goals per 90 at Villarreal. You know, another player that had good stats at Villarreal and then came to the Premier League and did well? Nicholas Jackson. And I know everyone's frustrated with Jackson. He's output over 20 goals in his first 2 seasons. He's done well, however way you frame it. So I think Barry could be good, but I think Beto is a very good player as well. And he was brilliant last season for Everton. And I just don't think it's a guarantee that Barry comes in straight away. In terms of penalties, it'll be Njai, I suspect, that will take them. So that doesn't matter. But yeah, if for example, we found out Beto was injured and Barry was going to start the season, he'd probably be in my team. I think he's got the potential to do really well. So Thiago and Barry, ones to keep an eye on, but it's going to depend on other factors as to whether you go for them in game week 1. Xerxes, like Højlund, you can just write him off as an option. There's no guarantee of minutes there. And then Füllkrug potentially could be really good if he can stay fit and if he plays regularly decent minutes. I just don't know if either of those things are guaranteed. And I also don't know if he's going to be on penalties either. Like, West Ham's fixtures are good. We've already spoken about Jarrod Bowen. I suspect that Jarrod Bowen will play mostly right wing. So as it stands, surely Füllkrug will be up front. But I just don't know if it's always a guarantee under Potter, and they'll probably sign another forward as well. If it's Callum Wilson they sign, by the way, probably not too much of an issue. He doesn't necessarily always stay fit either. But it would put some doubts on Füllkrug's minutes. So again, I see a world where he does really well right at the start. We've seen the pedigree from the Bundesliga before. But it's just, I don't know, there's just too many unknowns there. That's why I think this bracket could be great value. I just don't know if it's guaranteed straight away. So from a value perspective, we'd all love a nailed on 5.5 million forward in our team, preferably one that takes penalties, although that's not a deal breaker. Unfortunately, I think for game week 1, for the most part, we're probably going to have to ignore this bracket unless something changes over the next couple of weeks, transfers in or out, injuries and stuff like that. So Fleming at Burnley, I asked some Burnley fans on Twitter yesterday whether he was nailed. There seems to be some debate on that, and also that they might sign a new striker. And as I've said many times in videos now, the transfer window is open until after game week 1. So if you put him in your squad and then they sign a new forward and he comes in and plays instead, that's just a bit annoying. This is not the kind of position you want to be spending lots of transfers on necessarily. And also he's a Burnley forward under Scott Parker, who's often quite defensive. So do you want him anyway? Beto, if I had to guess right now, he's going to start against Leeds in game week 1. So could be a really good option. I just think with Barry there, how long is Beto going to start for? There's definitely concerns over his minutes. Beto's not going to play 90 week in, week out when you've got a forward of Barry's quality ready there. It might be that Beto starts against Leeds in game week 1, does so well. David Moyes says, look, Barry, you're going to have to wait for your chance. It's just not guaranteed. But I think he's probably one of the better 5.5s if you're going to go for one. Just don't come back to me if he gets benched, because it's absolutely possible. Muniz, I think, is behind Raul Jimenez in the pecking order. So unless there's an injury to Raul Jimenez, you can't really go for him. We're really just waiting to see if he goes to another club. Like if he went to Leeds, for example, he'd be someone to look at. But right now, I just ignore him. Peru at Leeds, if you listen to Leeds fans, they will tell you they're going to sign a new striker as one of the priority positions. So again, Peru right now, like Beto, will probably start game week 1. How many games is he going to continue to start after that? And if it's, say, the first 3, well, 2 of them are Arsenal away and Newcastle at home. So I would probably ignore him. And then at Sunderland, I've gone for Mayenda on the list. I think most people are talking about Isidore. Isidore, I think, scored more goals last year. But if you look at the playoff games, Mayenda started the final. So again, if you're a Sunderland fan, please leave a comment below and let me know what the deal is there. but it just feels like there's no guarantee of minutes from either of them. And also, preferably, I'd rather not have to trust a 5.5 million forward from a team like Sunderland. Unfortunately, they might do really well. They've made loads of signings, but it's far from a guarantee. And again, when I think about where I want to, like, preferably if I'm putting a 5.5 million forward in, they're just in, and I'm leaving them for a while. If you put in my Ender and Isidore starts, or the other way around, that's just a pain. So if I'm going for a 5.5, it's probably Beto out of this list. Peru will probably start the season, but I don't know how long that will last. So I'd be very careful. Let me know who you think the best forwards are. Which 3 do you have in your squad right now in a comment below. If you've enjoyed that and found it useful, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to get your team rated for free over on the My Team Tour Fantasy Football Hub by using the link in the description below. And I'll catch you again tomorrow for another video.